Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan Cooper. I'm the confidential executive assistant to the Chief Financial Officer of Portland Public Schools, and we are here today to talk to you about the Community Budget Review Committee. With me is my partner, Alexandra. Alexandra, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks. I'm Alexandra Martin. I'm on the finance team at Portland Public Schools. I'm a business operations analyst.
Thank you. So we're just going to jump right in and start talking about what the Community Budget Review Committee is and its purpose. Next slide. Thank you. So what is the purpose of the CBRC? Each year, the Board of Education, so in this case, we're talking about the school board made up of 7 members, appoints the Community Budget Review Committee to be involved in the annual budget process. And what that really is a group of community members, which could be families, students, parents, staff. They all come together to talk about the resources and the investments the district is proposing within their budget. The CBRC reviews, provides recommendations, and provides observations to the Board of Education through that budget process. CBRC also provides community oversight on the expenditures of the local option levy funds. CBRC members are critical thought partners. Here's why we say that. You know, as staff, we recognize that district staff and the board don't have all of the answers. And we really need community members to be involved in a process that ultimately impacts students and families, communities across Portland. And through saying that, we are committed to improving the CBRC outreach process, and central to that work is racial equity and social justice. We're particularly interested in centering applications from historically oppressed communities, and more specifically, Black, Brown, Indigenous communities. And one of the major things that the CBRC does is evaluate resources and investments that the district is proposing. And so many really important questions come up through the CBRC process, questions from community members like, do the board goals and strategic plan that the district has come up with align with what the community actually needs? How do we frame and interpret data on student outcomes? How are federal COVID relief dollars being used to support students? Thank you. So let's look at what the CBRC accomplished last year. Every year, the CBRC provides a report to the board on the proposed budget and local option levy. The report provides several observations and recommendations. And if you're interested in reading past reports, we have linked it in this slideshow, and this slideshow can be found in the description of this YouTube video. We highly recommend you go and check it out. That'll give you a really clear picture of what the CBRC does and the report itself. And through the whole process, CBRC members also learn about the PPS budget, student outcome data, and district priorities. It's really a well-rounded educational experience, not only for CBRC members, but for also staff involved. And so I'm going to turn it over to Alexandra, who's going to talk to you more about the next couple of slides.
So what are some of the key district priorities and frameworks that the committee will learn about when considering the district budget? As we go through the budget cycle together with our Community Budget Review Committee, we will be building a shared understanding of the district values and where we need to go to meet community needs. This information will come from our community directly when our committee members weigh in. And we also ground in frameworks that help the district prioritize within our resources. We have a strategic plan that guides our activities through 2025, and our strategic plan is organized within 4 themes. We have racial equity and social justice, inclusive and differentiated learning for every child, professional excellence and support, and embracing change. We also ground into the board goals. Our board refreshed their goals this summer, and we have 3rd grade reading, 5th grade math, 8th grade readiness, high school graduation, and post-secondary readiness on that list of board goals. We use these frameworks as a guidepost to evaluate investment decisions, and we reference them repeatedly in our school board meetings, and we'll reference them with our committee. And there will be space and time to discuss these frameworks and learn more about them as we go through the cycle with the committee. I want to speak to some of the milestones that come up in our PPS budget cycle. In Portland Public Schools in this period during the fall, we are building up our budget awareness. In October through November, we have enrollment and financial forecast data that helps us have some awareness of what the resources that we will have for this upcoming year. In December through March, we're working on budget planning. And so we have our staffing levels determined. We have budget priorities determined. And we work with our committee. We do community engagement during that time. And the committee is usually meeting about once per month during this period. The committee would be learning about student outcome data and all of those other budget pieces that help us build the budget. Our budget building phase is April through June, and this is when the district releases the proposed budget, and the CBRC considers that proposed budget and then provides their observations and recommendations in their report to the board, and the committee would present their report to the school board. The committee would also be involved in budget work sessions during that time, and this is really the peak of involvement for our community budget review committee because they are charged with providing that report on the proposed budget. After we have our proposed budget, we move through the last few phases of the budget cycle where we hear the approved budget, we have a tax supervising and conservation commission hearing, and we have the adopted budget. And there's also community involvement in those pieces as well. This next slide is speaking to a key task for our Community Budget Review Committee. Our Community Budget Review Committee is charged with the critical task of assessing the expenditures from the prior school year for the local option levy. What is our local option levy? Our local option levy is a levy that provides additional funding to our school district. It was approved by voters in November 2019, and it mandates independent oversight to ensure that the tax dollars are used for the purposes that are approved by the voters. The committee examines the data to determine the use of funds in 3 areas: maintaining and lowering class sizes, supporting well-rounded program, and providing funding equivalent to at least the 825 teaching positions that were initially projected in the levy. And the CBRC, just like many other pieces of the committee work, is supported by the PPS finance staff in assessing the levy data and providing that estimate of teachers. So we will be with you along the way. Jordan, do you want to speak to our logistics and time commitment?
Of course, yeah. So just to cover some of the logistics and time commitment of the CBRC, first, the applications are due this year by September 16, 2022 for 8 vacant positions. We've created a couple of different formats for the application. One is a Google form and one is a PDF. So you can use either that feels better to you. Members serve 3-year terms. And so any member involved or appointed this year will conclude their term June 30th of 2025, although student members only serve 1-year term. And students who are appointed this cycle will conclude their term June 30th of 2023. The CBRC typically meets monthly during the budget development season, October through June. However, the CBRC will often meet twice or maybe even more a month between March and May as they're developing that report and holding more conversations around what their observations and recommendations will ultimately be. And the meeting format for the CBRC is to be determined by the committee. However, in the last couple of cycles, the CBRC has met virtually. And keep in mind, the CBRC meetings are always live streamed on YouTube because it is a public meeting. So let's just talk about a little bit of accessibility and inclusion when it comes to this committee. Virtual or in person, as I stated before, that's always a big question for folks. CBRC meeting format is decided by the committee, as I said before. However, if we do meet in person, childcare, snacks, refreshments, those kinds of things are typically available. And as staff, we will do our best to make those things available to committee members. On top of that, finance staff are available to support with accessing and using Google Drive, documents, Zoom, and other tools and resources. We're often available to answer questions from CBRC members and also to relay questions to others in order to get answers and needs met. And if you ever had any other questions or concerns as committee members or even as community members, you can always reach out to us and let us know. We'll make every effort to meet your needs, and we welcome as much feedback as possible as we are actively trying to improve this outreach process and to meet the needs of our communities. So the application and selection process. So as I stated before, the application is open until September 16th, 2022. A selection panel will review those applications, hold interviews, and make a recommendation to the board. The panel itself is typically made up of a current CBRC member, a board member, an Office of Community Engagement staff member, and a finance staff member. We try to make sure that that panel is as diverse as possible. It has a wide range of perspectives, not just from staff, not just from the board, but also from the community. The board is ultimately, though, responsible for appointing new members to the CBRC. This is important to note. The panel only makes the recommendation to the board. The board will take those recommendations to one of their meetings, and they will ultimately be responsible for approving and appointing new members. So as I said earlier, the slideshow that we're presenting today is linked in the description of this YouTube video. On this particular slide, we have linked a whole lot of resources pertaining to CBRC that we think will be very helpful to you, as well as things like a Budget 101 video, if you're just simply wanting to learn more about the budget itself before you head into this adventure. That's always a great thing to look over. The CBRC webpage in particular always has all of these resources listed. That's a great place to check out. It's on the PPS website, all linked in this slide. And again, Alexander and I are always happy to answer your questions, discuss further what the CBRC is, what it does, what the commitments look like, what you might be doing, all of the things. And so you can always feel welcome to call or email us. Our numbers are listed here. Our emails are also listed here. You will also be able to find our information on the PPS website. Thank you all so much for tuning into this. We hope you stay engaged. We'd love to talk to you and engage with you in CBRC and in other ways moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.